Hey guys, welcome to Coding Spot and welcome to a new tutorial where I'm gonna be showing you how to code the classic Dino game. So it's basically the Google Chrome Dino game that pop-ups when you don't have internet connection. So many of you asked for this tutorial and I actually like that idea where you guys comment down below what games should I code next. So let me show you the final result of the game. So as soon as I press the spacebar key, the game starts to go on. We have our Dino that jumps these obstacles that are going to be randomly displayed on screen. We also have these sounds that appear whenever we jump, whenever we score 100 points, or whenever we die. So as soon as I lose, a game over label is displayed and we can restart our game with the R key. Now, when I restart the game, this is pretty cool because our high score is going to be persistent. So we're gonna save our high scores. Now, as you can see, we managed to obtain 161 on our previous game. Now, if I try to beat that high score, so I'm gonna try to make more than 161 points, and I managed to, beat that high score, the high score is going to override. And now, instead of 161, being displayed on screen, we're going to have our new high score. So let me show you. As you can see, as soon as I beat the 161 high score, the high score changes with my new score. So as you can see, it's actually pretty similar to the original one. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I really hope you like it. And if you have any other ideas of games that you would like me to code and make a tutorial on it, please make sure to leave it on the comments below. So yeah, I hope you like this tutorial and let's start coding. Okay guys, so make sure to create a new project folder. I already create mine, and once you have done this, the first thing you want to do is go to the link that I'm gonna leave on the description below. In that link, you're going to find the GitHub repository of the project, and in there you can download the assets that we're gonna need for this project. Now, if it's a little bit confusing or you haven't used GitHub before, I'm gonna show you what I mean. So the link is going to send you here. This is the repository of the project, and what you want to do is click where it says code and then where it says download zip. Now, once you download the zip, you're gonna have all the project files. Make sure to copy the assets folder and paste it on your new project file. Now, you can also do this by forking or cloning the repository if you have worked with these things before. And I'm not sure if you need GitHub for this, but if you can't download these assets, well, just make sure to create a new account, a new GitHub account, and follow the previous instructions. Now, once you have done this, you should have your project folder. Mine is named Dino. Now, inside the assets folder, we're going to have two folders. The images one, where we're going to have obviously all the images of the project, and the sounds folder, where we are going to have the 3 different sounds that we need. So make sure that's the first thing you do before coding the game. Okay, so let's start by creating a new file. So I'm gonna call it dino.py. And the first thing we want to do is to display our screen. As I always say on my tutorials, these first lines of code are always the same, so don't worry if you don't understand what we are doing. So let's start by importing sys model, the Pygame model, and then let's start creating our screen. So for this example, or for this game, we're gonna use a screen with a width of 623 pixels. Okay, so you can use the dimensions you like, but I strongly recommend you to use the same dimensions that I'm gonna use, because you may have problems if you try with different dimensions. Now, the height that we're gonna use for our screen is going to be 150 pixels. And now we can create our screen. So let's start by initializing our Pygame model. So type pygame.init, Then we're gonna create our screen, so I'm gonna call it screen, and this is equal to pygame.display.setMode, and inside of those brackets we need to pass a tuple, and the tuple will be width comma height. Now once we have created our screen, we can set a caption, so go ahead and type pygame.display.set a caption, and I'm gonna name it Dino. Now we're gonna create our main function, so def main. I'm gonna pass it for now, and we're gonna call our main function right here. Now remember, again, this is always the same, so don't worry if you don't understand this. This is basically how we wanna set up our code. Now inside of our main function, we're gonna create our main loop. So while true, and inside of the main loop, we want to check the Pygame events. So for event in Pygame dot event dot get, and inside of this we want to check if event dot type equals Pygame dot quit. Then we want to do the following. We want to type Pygame dot quit like this, and we want to type sys.exit. So sys is going to be our model here, and this is basically going to quit the application on the X button. Now at the end of the main loop, but outside of this for loop, we want to type pygame.display.update. And we can now save the file and run it to see our screen. I'm gonna resize my screen to see the game pop up here. Okay, so I have an error. I misspelled display here. And as you can see, we have our screen. Now we're gonna start by creating our game class. If you haven't worked with classes before, this is a perfect opportunity to start learning them. So go ahead and type class game. We're gonna create our init method. So like this. Now we're gonna leave our game class like this for now. Let's create our background class. You'll see why we need a class for the background in a moment. Let's create the init method of our background class. Okay, so inside of the init method of the game class, we want to type self.background equals a new background. So the background of our game is going to be a new background, which is a class. Now inside of the init method of the background, we want to type the following. We want to add two attributes. One is going to be the width of the background, and that is going to be the same as the width of our screen. Also, we're gonna add the height of our background. And this is going to be the same as the height of our screen. And we wanna create two new methods. One is gonna be called set texture, and the other one is gonna be show. So set texture, you'll see it on basically all of our classes, and this is going to be responsible of adding the texture to our background. Now the show method, you also are gonna see it pretty much in all classes, and this is going to be responsible of obviously showing the background. So let's go ahead and create those two methods right here. So def set texture, we're gonna receive self as a parameter. We're gonna pass it for now, and we want to create also our show method. We're gonna receive the self parameter, and I'm gonna pass. Now I'm gonna be consistent with this through all the video, through all the tutorial actually. Our show method is gonna be on top of the set texture method. So we're gonna create a new variable, path, and we're gonna do the following. We wanna first import a new module called OS, and path is gonna be equal to os.path.join And inside of join, we want to type the path of the background image. So in this case, the background image is inside the assets folder, inside the images folder, and it is right here. So go ahead and type assets slash images slash background or bg.png. Now, once you have created the path, you want to type self.texture is going to be equal to pygame.image.load, and we're going to pass the path as parameter. Now, the background is a little bit too big for our screen, so we need to somehow resize it or scale it accordingly. So go ahead and type self.texture equals pygame.transform.scale. And these are just methods, by the way. These are just methods that you can find on the Pygame documentation, so nothing to worry about. And inside of this method, we want to pass first the image that we want to scale, so that will be our self.texture. And then we want to pass a tuple telling Pygame how we want to scale it. So it's going to be self.width, self.height. And remember, width and height, or self.width and self.height, are going to be the same as our screen width and our screen height. So that will perfectly scale our background. Now, inside of the show method, so right here, we want to type screen, and this screen is basically the same as this one, dot bleed, and we want to bleed obviously our self.texture that we already created. So make sure you call first the setTexture method and then the show method. So self.texture, and right here we want to have a coordinate to tell Pygame where we want to bleed that texture. So for now we want to bleed it on 0, 0, but we want to change this in a moment and you'll see why. So we have done these two methods for now. Again, if you are a little bit lost, this method is gonna set the texture. So we're converting our PNG image into an actual sprite of the game, and this method is basically showing that sprite on screen. So let me show you what we did with these two methods. So right here we created that background, but we need to create now our game. So inside of our main function, we wanna type the following: game equals a new game, and when we create this game, this background is gonna be created, and hence we are going to show it. So let's try saving and running the file to see it. So as you can see, we have our background, so pretty cool. And remember, I told you that we were going to change these coordinates, and that's because we need the background to move. So maybe you've heard of this before. We don't want our Dino to move. Instead, we want the background to move, and that's called Parallax infinite scrolling background. So you'll see what this is about in a moment, but for now you just need to know that the Parallax infinite scrolling background is going to solve the problem that we are not going to need an infinite background in order for our app to work properly. We are just going to use two backgrounds that are going to be dynamically moving and are going to give the illusion that we have an infinite scrolling background. I know this might be confusing, but you'll see what I'm talking about. So for now, let's go ahead and create a new method that is called update. So right here, we're gonna do it inside of our background class. Now remember that I told you that we are going to have these two methods in pretty much all of our classes. Well, the update method is going to be also part of that group. So make sure to create it. As I told you, I wanna follow a structure, so I wanna have the update method first, then the show method, and then the setTexture method. So inside of our update method, we're going to code the infinite background code. Now, before we do that, we're gonna create two new attributes. One is gonna be x, and that's going to be equal to an x that we are going to send by parameter. So right here, make sure to type comma x, So self comma x comma y. These are parameters, and we are going to create these new attributes. So self.x equals x and self.y equals y. Now, why do we need this? Because we need to move the background. So we need to somehow save or have the information of where our background is located. Okay, so the update function right here is going to receive a parameter, which I'm gonna call dx, and this is how fast you can think about this of how fast we want to move our background. Now, this is going to be a negative number because we want to move our background to the left to give the illusion that our Dino is moving to the right. You'll see what I'm talking about. Now, inside of the update function, we want to type self.x plus equals dx, and that's it. We haven't completed our update function, but for now that is going to work. Now, when we create the background, now we need to pass those two params, the x and the y. So we're gonna use 0, 0 for now, and once we show our background, so right here, instead of showing it on the 0, 0 a static coordinate, we want to show it on the self.x and self.y dynamic coordinate. Okay, now right here inside of our main loop, we want to type game.background.update. We open brackets and we want to send a speed. So I'm gonna send something like -3. Or you know what, I'm actually going to create a new variable inside of our game class, and I'm gonna call it speed. So go ahead and type self.speed equals 3. So instead of sending the static -3, we want to send our game.speed but negative, because we want the background to move to the left. So I'm gonna save and run the file, and all these things that we coded might start to actually make sense to you. So I'm gonna run the file, and nothing is happening. And that's because we are not showing our background. I mean, remember we just show it once, so right here when we created it, but now we need to show it each time we update it. So game.background.show, like this. And now this should work. So as you can see, we have our background moving, but look what happens. At one point, when the background moves its width, the background is going to obviously disappear, and we're going to have a blank image or a blank screen. Now that's why we need to implement the Parallax infinite scrolling background, and you'll see the code is pretty easy. So we're gonna leave these lines of code like this for now, and we're gonna go to our update method of the background class, and inside of the update method we want to type the following. So if the self.x is actually less than or equal to -width, and in other words, this line of code is telling us like, okay, is the background totally outside of the screen? We want to do the following. We want to set our x to be equal to the width. So basically we're going to restart or reset the x property, and the background is going to start again on our screen width. Now I'm gonna save and run the file to see. This is not gonna work yet, but I want you to see what happens. So as you can see, we have a background, then we have a blank screen, then we have our background, then we have a blank screen, and so on, so on. This is like an infinite loop. Now this is because we need, as I told you, a second background. So we're gonna do that right now. So instead of creating just one background, we're going to create a list of 2 backgrounds. So let me show you. Instead of creating the background that is going to start at 0, 0, we're going to create an array with a background that starts at 0, 0, and a background that starts at width, 0. And actually, our y coordinate is never gonna change, so I'm actually removing this from the parameter and I'm setting the y equal to 0. So make sure to erase those two params. So okay, we're creating one background with an x, let me put it here to be clear, of equals 0 and an x at the screen width. Now we want to go inside of our main loop and we want to make some changes. So now our background is actually a list of backgrounds, so we want to loop it. So we want to type the following: for background in game.background, we want to update that background with the minus game.speed, right? And then we want to show it. So background.show. And these two lines of code are gonna be applied for both of our game backgrounds. So let me actually save the file and run it to see if it's working. So as you can see, we have our Parallax infinite scrolling background working perfectly. So I just want you to think what we just did. So instead of having an infinite background, which is basically impossible, so imagine a background with an infinite width, it's basically impossible. We're just using two backgrounds, which width is the same of our screen width, and we are dynamically moving them, and we're giving the illusion that we have an infinite background. Now we have a problem, and that is that our game speed is actually relative. If your computer is faster than mine, this background is actually moving faster. But if your computer is actually slower than mine, this background is moving slower for you. So we're gonna fix that right now, and that's actually pretty easy. We're gonna create something called clock, a Pygame clock. So go ahead and type clock equals pygame dot time dot clock, like this. And at the end of our main loop, before we update our screen, we want to type the following. We want to type clock, right here, clock dot tick, and we're gonna use 80. I think that will work. You can play with this number until you achieve a speed more or less as the one you can see on screen. So yeah, this will fix the issue that if your PC is actually faster than mine, this will go faster and vice versa. So yeah guys, we did our background, we finished our background class actually, and on the next video we're gonna be coding our Dino class. So we're gonna be adding the Dino, our player. So I hope you liked this tutorial, I hope you learned something new today, and yeah, as always, I see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.